we're ready to go. Pardon the delay, but the attorneys wanted a little bit of time. I think we're ready to go. All right.
Thank you, Your Honor. Your Honor, we would call Steve Kraus.
All right. Mr. Kraus, raise your right hand, please. You solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give the court and jury will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help me God.
So help me God.
Good afternoon, sir. Could you please state your name for the record?
Stephen Kraus,
And what is your home address, please?
1402 McDonald Street, Sandusky.
Okay. And sir, are you currently employed?
Yes.
Where are you employed?
I am the state representative for the 89th Ohio House District.
Okay. And are you employed in any other capacity?
Yes, I'm also a licensed real estate agent and a licensed auctioneer.
How long have you been the state representative for the 89th District?
Since January 5th of 2015.
Okay, and that's when you took office?
That's when I actually was sworn in and took office.
Okay,
yes.
when were you elected?
I was elected on November 4th of 2014.
And how long have you been a realtor?
Since 2008, so that's 7 years.
And how long have you been an auctioneer?
Since 2004, so that would be 11 years.
Okay. Sir, did you have an occasion to be present at an address located at 653 South Lightner Road in Port Clinton, Ohio?
Yes, I did.
And how did you come about being at that property?
I was at a continuing education course at the office in Sandusky on Campbell Street for ethics, and it was on the morning of April 3rd of 2014.
Okay, and what transpired at this continuing education?
There was a group of us realtors that were there for the class, and Janine Porter was one of them, and she approached me and asked me if I still do auctions.
Okay, and what did you respond?
I said yes.
Okay, and what happened subsequent to your response?
She asked me if I could help her out with the property over in Port Clinton or Danbury Township, wherever. And she asked me, this woman was in desperate need of help. She needed to sell her property very quickly. There was antiques in the house, but you needed to be careful because the house was a wreck.
Okay, and what happened after that?
I told her I could go to the house at 1:30 that afternoon, after the class finished at noon.
Okay, and what happened after you told her that?
I asked her, I said, I can meet you there at 1:30 that afternoon. She told me she could not make that, she had another appointment. So then at that time I asked her if she had the combination for the lockbox, and I'd be happy to go and take a look at the property.
Okay, and what happened after you asked her for the combination for the lockbox?
She said there was no lockbox.
Okay, and what happened next?
We agreed that I would go to the property, take a look at it, evaluate the personal belongings for a possible auction.
Okay, and what happened after you guys agreed to that?
We've continued the course until the course dismissed, and then we went our separate ways. And I told her I would call her later that day and tell her what I found out.
And approximately what time did that course dismiss?
Around noon.
Okay, and then you did what?
I went to the property. I probably went and got lunch, and then I went to the property about 1:30 that afternoon.
Okay, and when you got to the property, what did you do?
I went into the back door
Okay.
that she told me was open.
Okay, and what did you do after you went in the back door?
Well, I went into the building, and it was much worse than what she had led me to believe. She had told me that the property had not been occupied for like 8 or 9 years. And when I walked in, I had even asked her before, I said, is there, how bad is bad? Is there feces and stuff like that on the ground? And she said, oh no, it's not that bad. Well, when I walked in, there was like a kind of a carved pathway in from the back door, up the steps into one room, into the dining area. There was a dining area, then there was a kitchen area, and then to the front was should have been a living room. When I walked in, the dining room looked like somebody had tried to clean up and through to that point. That was the only place where there was any open floor space.
Okay. And what happened after you observed the dining room?
Okay. Well, I was dressed in much the same attire I have on today. I actually had a long coat on because it was cold. It was cold and rainy that day. So I really just did a cursory walk through the house. I looked at the kitchen, I looked at the living room, and there was trash and filth everywhere. There was dead animal on the floor, there was feces everywhere. In the kitchen, there was stuff hanging out of the cupboards. The drawers were open. It looked like the house had been ransacked. It literally looked like something that you saw on the show Hoarders. And it looked like smokers had been there, because you know how you get a thick yellow film on a house that's been smoking for a long time? That was everywhere, and on top of the cobwebs. So I didn't really want to touch anything. So I just kind of gingerly walked around in the house, peeked in different rooms, went around to the other room, went up the steps to the second floor, looked around a little bit, saw a bedroom that had beer cans at least 1.5 feet deep across the entire room. Couldn't get up to the attic because the attic, it looked like somebody had been in the attic and was literally throwing things down the steps, because there was so much debris on the steps it was like nearly impossible to navigate the steps. So I looked around the house. I went back downstairs to the door that I came into, and I went down into the basement. There was black mold everywhere. There was like a film. It looked like it had actually leaked water at one time. It was just the floor was black. It was I didn't want to touch anything. So then I turned around, I went outside of the building, and then I looked at the outbuildings that she told me there was also several outbuildings that were open as well.
Okay. And what happened after you went out to the outbuildings?
Well, I went to the outbuildings. There was one next to the structure that was kind of collapsed, and it had a motorcycle. I really couldn't tell what it was, but it was some sort of motorcycle there. And then I went to the other two outbuildings. I could see some sort of an antique vehicle through the window, but I couldn't get the door open because there was so much debris behind the door. I couldn't literally push the door open. So then I went around to the side of it. There was 2 other doors I went in. It looked like a workroom and another small, and I just looked around, and there was boxes and stuff, and then I left the property.
Okay. And what happened after you left the property?
I called Janine Porter later that day.
Okay. And approximately what time did you call Miss Porter?
Well, it was later in the day, probably around 4:30, 5 o'clock.
Okay. And did you get in contact with Miss Porter?
Yes, I did.
And what did you tell her when you called her?
Well, we had about a 20 or 30-minute conversation, and I explained options to her. I told her that the house, to do an on-site auction, I would need 45 to 60 days. I would need to bring dumpsters in, and we'd have to pay the people to go, throw the stuff away. There was good stuff. There was some antique furniture there. There was some different things that I thought could be worth some money. But there was so much filth and trash that it was going to take at least 45 to 60 days to set up for an on-site auction.
Okay.
She asked me if we could take it somewhere and do an off-site auction. And I explained to her I thought it was cost prohibitive because there was so much filth that you don't want to haul all that trash away, and any money that you would make off the sellable items, you would lose in the labor trying to transport it to. I ran an auction gallery for 7 years in Sandusky. I did an auction every week, 50 auctions a year for 7 years straight, until I closed my business in 2011. And I was telling her that it was not cost effective for her or her client to try to move this stuff to any other location, because I just don't think that I think the labor would eat up any profit that she would have made.
Okay. And what happened after you explained that to Miss Porter?
I asked her why we're not auctioning off the property.
Okay, and what happened after that?
I told her that, you have 5 acres of property here, farmland, all this frontage. Property is worth $18,000 to $22,000 in Port Clinton. We could easily take this to auction and realistically expect an $80,000 to $90,000 price tag.
Okay, and what happened after you told her that?
She told me she had 3 offers already, and that she had to sell the property fast, and that this was not going to be an option for the auction.
Okay, and what happened after that?
I told her that there was some things that I was interested in. I said, well, because when Janine Porter originally approached me at the class, she told me that the woman that owned the house was in desperate need for money, and that anything I could do to help her, please do. So, being the Good Samaritan, I said, okay, I'll go over there and I'll try to help. And so when I saw that there was looked like a Tiffany lampshade, some sort of a lampshade, and out in one of the outbuildings there was 2 guitars way back there was a huge pile of trash, and way in the back there was like 2 guitars, and I gingerly climbed up there and pulled it out, and one of them was an older Japanese guitar from the early 60s, and I'm a guitar player, so of course I was interested in it, and I left everything there. But I said, well, if she wants to sell some things, I would be interested in buying some things if she wants to sell some things. Could you give me her contact information, and I'd be happy to talk to her about that.
Okay, and what happened next?
Janine said that Helen Stein didn't have a phone number. She told me that it was very difficult to get a hold of her, but that she would ask, and she would see if Miss Stein wanted to sell some of her belongings.
Okay, and what happened next?
The next morning, at about 6:20, 6:30, I texted Janine Porter, and I asked her. I said, "Are you up? Can we talk?"
Okay, and what happened next?
She said yes. She texted me back and said, "Yes, I'm up." So I called her.
Okay. What happened after she told you that yes, she was up?
I called her, and I said, "Hey," I said, "you've got that car in the garage. I had not really been able to look at it to ascertain what it is." I said, "If you want, I can go over and take a look at the car as well." I said, "Have you asked Helen Stein if she wants to sell anything? And if so, let me know, and I will be happy to go back to the house."
Okay, and what happened next?
Approximately around 11 o'clock, I talked to Janine again, and she told me Helen Stein did agree to sell me some things from the house, and that I could go back into the house.
Okay, and what happened after that?
She also told me that she accepted the deal from the brother, and that he would be willing to pay any price, and there was bad blood between them. She gave me the backstory, and that now we only had 14 days. So if you were going to buy anything, you better do it now. You better go over there now, because you're not going to have much time. And I said, well, give me Mrs. Stein's number so I can set something up. She said she would send me the information, and she said you can go back to the house and go through the house and look for anything that you want to maybe purchase, and take pictures of the car. Go in and see if I can actually get in to see what the car was.
Okay, and what happened after that?
I went back, I put on work clothes, and I went back to the house, I don't know, 1 o'clock that afternoon.
Okay. What happened after that?
Well, I first went into the garage where the car was. I had to kind of kneel down and reach behind the door to pull garbage out so I could swing the door open enough so I could get in there. And I took 2 pictures of the car.
Okay, and after you took those 2 photos, what did you do next?
I pulled the door shut and I went back into the house.
Okay.
I actually, before I did that, I went out to the other barn and I looked at the guitar, and I realized at that time that I looked at it closer, the neck was bent, so I wasn't interested in it, so I left it there.
Okay. And what happened after you left the guitar there?
I went into the house and I started walking around looking for the lampshade and anything else that I thought maybe would be of value that I could buy from Mrs. Stein.
Okay, and what happened after that?
As I was walking around the house, you see something here and then you see a mountain of filth, and you see something here and you see another mountain of filth. It got to the point where I decided that it was probably better for me to take a box and start putting stuff in box so that I could keep it organized, because the house was such a disaster.
Okay, and what happened after you started putting items in a box?
I went through the house, I went all the way up to the third floor to the attic, I climbed over the things on the steps, and I filled a couple boxes with different items.
Okay. And what happened after you filled a couple boxes?
I brought the boxes downstairs to put them in the dining room area where it was the only floor space, so that when I could get a hold of Mrs. Stein, then we could make a deal on what to sell the stuff for.
Okay. And what happened when you put the boxes in the dining room?
I then noticed that the guns were all missing from the gun cabinet.
Okay, when you say the guns were all missing, what do you mean?
Okay, on April 3rd when I went in there, there was 2 real guns, and there was like 3 BB guns, and there was a bunch of ammo laying around. Now there was like 1 single barrel shotgun, there was, looked like a .22, and then miscellaneous BB guns. I evaluated them, they were of nominal value, and when I mean nominal value, they were like worth $50 or maybe less. They were rusty, not in very good shape, and I wasn't interested in them.
Okay. Was there a 12 gauge shotgun?
No, there was not.
Okay. And so you say when you were there on the next day, April 4th,
April 4th.
you noticed what?
On April 4th, once I finished doing everything else I was working on, that's when I looked at the gun case and realized all the guns were missing.
Okay. And so
And at that point, I thought somebody was stealing from the house. I knew the door was unsecure. I had an oral contract. I have a fiduciary responsibility, both as an auctioneer and real estate agent, to protect the assets, especially the ones that I've just touched. So the house was insecure. I couldn't get Janine Porter on the phone. I tried to call her. So I loaded the stuff up in my van and I left.
okay. You indicate that you had a fiduciary duty.
Yes.
And why did you have that fiduciary duty?
Because I'm a licensed auctioneer and I'm a licensed real estate agent. And I had an oral contract with Janine Porter that I could actually go back into the house and purchase some items.
Okay. And you say you tried to call Janine Porter.
Yes.
Why were you attempting to call Janine Porter?
Because I wanted to tell her that the guns were missing and it looked like somebody was stealing the items from the house.
Okay. And when you couldn't get a hold of her, what happened?
When I couldn't get a hold of her, I left the premises. I got back to my house approximately at 3 o'clock. I called her again, and at that time she answered.
Okay, when you left the premises, did you take anything with you?
Yes.
What did you take?
I took a record player, I took a couple boxes of things that had guy stuff in it, and then I took the lampshade, I took a saxophone that I found upstairs. There was guy stuff in the house, and it didn't make any sense to me, because Janine Porter never told me there was any other parties involved. She told me that this woman was desperate, she wasn't living in the house, and that she wanted to sell the contents of the house as well because she needed the money. So I took those items that I thought were worth some value that I could maybe purchase from her.
Okay. And you took those items because of?
Well, I took those items. I mean, I took the items, one, because the door was unsecured. It looked like somebody was stealing, and some of the stuff I could not ascertain because of the lighting in the house, and I don't know the values. I mean, I think the saxophone might be worth a lot of money, but I wasn't sure. I think the the shade might be worth some money, but I'm not sure. So what I was going to do is take some of this stuff and look it up so that I could give her a fairer price.
Okay. And what happened after? You say you drove back to your home.
I got home, I pulled in the driveway approximately 3 o'clock. I called Janine Porter. Janine Porter answered the phone. The first thing she said is, I don't want anything more to do with this. I don't want anything to do about you buying anything from Helen Stein. And I said, that's fine. I said, give me Helen Stein's phone number and let me call her. And she said, I'll text it to you, I'll text it to you. She sounded very agitated and excited. I said, okay, do you know that the guns are missing? That was the very next thing out of my mouth. I said, the guns are gone. She said, yes, the son took them. I said, oh, okay. and then she hung up.
Okay, and what happened next?
That's when I realized that there was somebody else involved. I did not realize that there was a son in the house. I didn't realize there was somebody else's property in the house. I thought this was Helen Stein's house and Helen Stein's property, and everything was available for potential auction, sale, purchase, anything. So at that point, I had a 5 o'clock event that I had to go to. I made the decision to take all the guy's stuff back because I knew that if there's another individual that I don't have a contract with, and I don't even know who this individual is, he might be kind of upset that I removed his stuff.
Okay, and what happened next?
I went back to the house, I took the guy's stuff back in, I took the record player back in, and then I left.
Okay, and then what happened?
I went to my 2 events that I had that evening, and approximately at 9:30 that evening, I got a call from Jeff Berquist.
Okay, and what happened next?
Jeff told me that he got a call from a previous employee and that there's pictures of me taking items out of the house, and he wanted to know what I was doing.
Okay, and what happened next?
I explained to him. I told him that I had been asked by Janine Porter, and we had had a conversation before that about the house. I had told him that we might have a potential auction, but the house is really dirty, and we had discussed about the 5 acres and stuff. So he knew that I was doing this. But that night, during that phone call, he said, well, Tabitha's going to send me the pictures, and we'll talk in the morning.
Okay, and what happened next?
I looked the items up that I had. I still had 1 box of stuff. I had the lampshade, I had a mirror, a couple miscellaneous things. And I looked those up that night to see what their value was. And the next morning, I got up and I tried several times to text Janine Porter, asked her for Helen Stein's phone number so that I could find out, complete the deal, what's going on, and no response.
Okay, and what happened next?
At approximately, well, I had also talked to Jeff Berquist at that time, and he said, well, let's just see if you get a call back. At approximately 3:30 that afternoon, that Saturday, April 5th afternoon, I said, Janine Porter's not calling me. There's something wrong here. There's something very wrong. So he gave me Tabitha's phone number, who was the employee that had called him. I called her, and I explained the situation to her, and I said, I got 1 box of stuff left here, and I don't know what's going on. I don't know how to get a hold of Helen, so I want to bring this box back. And she said, well, nobody else is here, but I can meet you at the house.
Okay, what happened next?
So she agreed to meet me there. I said it'll take me about a half hour to get there, so I met her there approximately 4 o'clock.
Okay, and what happened next?
I took the box out of the car. I went over and I actually put it in her car for her. I told her that the lampshade was worth so much money and this is a sterling mirror. I went through some of the items, told her some of the value of some of them that I had ascertained. I also told her the value of a pedal car, a metal car that was in the shed that should be thrown away. It was worth more money. She insisted that I had stolen, and I told her I did not. That's not how I operate. I don't do things like that. I explained to her that Janine Porter gave me permission to be in the house. That was the only reason I went back. I told her I had an oral contract, and I had a fiduciary responsibility, and then we got talking about the guns. And she said there was 3 real guns in there, and I said, no. On April 3rd, when I went in there, there was only 2 real guns. And she insisted there was 3 real guns. She told me there was a double-barrel shotgun, which I never saw.
Okay, and you've heard the testimony of everybody in this case, correct?
Yes.
You heard the testimony of Kevin Francis,
Yes, I did.
and Kevin Francis said that he indicated that he was there at 8:30 a.m. on April 3rd,
That's correct.
and that is before you were there for the first time.
That's correct.
And he indicated that there was only 2 guns.
Yes.
So what happened next after this gun conversation?
Well, she was kind of upset. So I explained to her what was going on. I've been in houses like this. We talked about how horrible the house was, the inside of the house. She explained to me, well, you should have seen the front porch. She said, I cleaned the front porch off. She said the front porch was just as bad as the inside of the house. She said it took her 2 dumpsters to clear off the front porch. And she's told me the pathway that was carved out up into the dining room, she did that by herself.
Okay, and what happened next?
I explained to her what I had told Janine Porter about the auction, how it would take 30 days, 45 to 60 days if we were going to do an on-site one, and I understood the brother was buying the house now, and she said that the brother across the street in the wheelchair was very upset. He was very pissed, her words, and so I said, well, can I go over and apologize to him? I'd be happy to go over and explain to him what's going on, why I was here, and why this appeared to be something other than what it was. And she said, no, I don't think that's a good idea, because he's really pissed at you right now.
When you return the property, just go back a small step.
Mm-hmm.
You returned the property in a box that's that you indicated.
Yes.
What color was that box?
It was a white box.
Going back to where we were about wanting to possibly have a conversation with Ms. Loroff's boyfriend.
No, it was the gentleman in the wheelchair across the street, the
Okay.
brother.
Okay, what happened after that?
She said that wasn't a good idea, and she didn't want me to do it.
Okay, and what happened after that?
I gave her my business card. I said, if you decide you still want to have an auction, give me a call. I'd be happy to come over and see if I can help.
What happened after you gave her that business card?
I left the premises.
Okay. What happened after you left the premises?
I called Jeff Berquist and told him I'd returned all the merchandise.
Okay. And what happened after you spoke with Mr. Berquist?
He said he would get a hold of Tabitha and talk to her. Subsequently, everything was okay and there was no more problem.
And what happened after that?
Nothing until I saw Janine Porter again at a Republican women's event, and I went over there and I touched her arm and told her that took all the items back to the house and that everything was fine.
Okay, and what happened after that?
Nothing. She seemed fine with that, and I walked away.
Okay. Was that the last interaction you had with Janine Porter?
Yes.
Did you have any further interaction
No.
with...
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. Did you have any further interaction with Helen Steins?
I've never had any interaction with Helen Stein.
Correct. Tabitha Loroff?
No. I never had any more interaction with her.
Did you have any more interaction with anybody that testified here today?
Jeff Berquist, the gentleman that testified about the condition of the house earlier.
Is that through the course of your employment?
Yeah, just of course of regular thing, yeah.
When you were at this house on 2 days, April 3rd and April 4th of 2014?
I was actually there 3 days.
Okay, 3 days. Oh, April 5th as well.
That's correct.
How long were you there roughly on April 3rd?
Probably no more than like 45 minutes to an hour.
And how long were you there on April 4th?
Approximately 2 hours,
And how long were you there on April 5th?
maybe 20 minutes.
Okay, April 5th was just to return the items to Tabitha?
That's correct.
So you spent 2 hours and 45 minutes roughly in this structure.
Yes.
So were you rushing to get out of there?
No.
When you entered the house, what was your intent?
My intent was to evaluate property for a possible auction.
Did you intend to steal any property?
No, I did not.
Do you intend to permanently deprive whomever the owner was of the property?
No, I did not.
And you believed that let me rephrase the question. You were there, and so you believe you were there pursuant to the permission of who?
Janine Porter. I had an oral contract, which is legal in the state of Ohio, to go and evaluate property for a possible auction. And that's why I went to the house on April 3rd. That's why I subsequently went back on April 4th.
And when you took the property out of the house after being there for 2 hours on April 4th, your intent was what?
To secure the property because it looked like things were being stolen. We're coming up missing.
Did you intend to keep that property
No.
permanently? I have nothing further.
Kraus?
Yes, Your Honor, thank you. Mr. Kraus, when you talk about being an auctioneer and a real estate agent, you're self-employed, correct?
Yes,
You don't make money as a real estate agent unless you actually sell property.
that's correct.
And unless people bring auction items to you, you can't sell them either. Correct? I mean, you have to have access to the property in order to sell it.
Yes,
What you're telling this jury is that Janine Porter is a liar, isn't that correct?
that's correct.
You're telling this jury that Janine Porter set you up and sent you over to a house and then lied about it in court.
No, I didn't say she set me up. I said she's lying about phone conversations, and she's lying about the oral contract and her asking me to go there to look at the property for a possible auction.
Okay. Well, let's talk about what you think's a lie and what's the truth. You're not disputing the fact that she met you at an ethics seminar
That's correct.
on April 5th, right? And you're not disputing the fact that when she testified, she said she sent you over to the property to discuss with you selling the antique car that was in the garage.
No, I never said I would sell the antique car.
You took pictures of the car.
That's correct.
Where are they?
My attorney has them.
Are they here in court?
I don't know, you have to ask my attorney.
Okay. Did you ever evaluate the car to determine its value?
No,
You're telling this jury that you didn't really go over there to look at the car, did you?
no. What I'm telling you is I forced my way into the garage by removing things. I took 2 pictures. There was so much trash still on the car, and I still couldn't tell what it was. I figured it was like worth a couple $1,000s at best. And I went then into the house.
Okay. So, you didn't make any progress as far as determining what the car was worth or how to sell the car. You just went into the house at that point.
Because I had permission to go into the house.
And you didn't have permission from Helen Stein,
I have permission from her agent.
but you're claiming you had permission from Janine Porter.
That's correct, I did.
And you're telling this jury you went in the house to evaluate the house for sale and auction?
I am a licensed auctioneer and real estate agent. When I went over there the first day, I went over there with the intent of evaluating the personal property for a potential auction. I also, because I'm a licensed real estate agent, of course I'm going to look at the property. That's why I suggested to her that she tell her client that she should consider taking this to auction because she'll get much more. My question to Ms. Porter was, why are you selling this property for so low a price, $50,000? We can get $80,000 to $90,000 at an auction within 30 days.
that you were gonna run?
No, anybody could run it.
Now, so we're clear here, Mr. Kraus. You went through the house to evaluate property, is that correct? Yes or no?
Which day are you
We're
referring
talking
to?
on April 3rd, first time you went
The
over there.
first time I went there, I looked at the property inside the house and in the outbuildings. That's correct. For a possible auction of personal property.
Did you make a list of what you looked at?
No.
Did you move anything in the house?
I might have moved some things to peek in a room or something, but no, not really.
Okay, but you looked in the gun cabinet,
Yes?
because you have an interest in firearms.
Yes?
In fact, you've sold firearms before an auction.
Absolutely.
And you have a pretty good idea what firearms are worth.
That's correct.
Winchesters are pretty collectible in the United States, aren't they?
Yes, they are.
And in fact, Winchester shotguns are one of those things that can be worth an awful lot of money, right?
Well, up until this event yesterday, when you said it was a Winchester shotgun, I had never heard that. I've never even heard of a Winchester shotgun. So I had to Google it last night to actually find out that Winchester shotguns existed, because I always thought they made lever action rifles.
Sure. They make all kinds of shotguns, pump action,
I
single
did
action.
not know that.
Double barrel guns. Historically, they make all.
I didn't know that.
Okay. What you're telling this jury is there was not a double barrel 12 gauge in that gun cabinet on September 3rd. Right.
You mean on April 3rd?
April 3rd, is that correct?
On April 3rd, when I went in the house approximately 1:30 in the afternoon, there was no double barrel shotgun anywhere.
And then when you went in the house the following day, around 1 o'clock, there was no firearms at all in the gun case.
That is correct.
Okay. Now I want to go back to April 3rd. You're going through the house, you're dressed business clothes.
That's correct.
You don't actually go up to the attic?
I might have tried to. I don't know. There was so much stuff on the thing, on the steps. If I did, I got to the top of the steps and just peeked in there, and that was it.
Okay. And what you're telling us is there's a whole bunch of junk.
Yes.
But there's some stuff that's worth some
There's
real
some
money.
things. There's some antique furniture with a bunch of junk on top of it. There's some things. There's some money items.
Yeah, I mean, silverback mirrors are worth money.
Mm-hmm.
Yes or no?
Yes.
Old Victrolas are worth money,
Yes.
particularly if the speakers are intact, right? The horn thing in the front.
Yes.
Old needlework like pin cushions, quilts, all that stuff's worth money.
Well, I don't know. Some of it I wasn't sure. There's some value there, but I wasn't sure what those values were.
What about dolls?
I didn't see any dolls.
You didn't see a single doll in the house.
No. Not that I remember.
Didn't see any dolls downstairs.
Not that I remember.
Didn't see any dolls up in the attic.
No.
Didn't see any wicker baby carriages.
I saw there was some sort of wicker baby carriage up in the attic, and it was still there.
On September 3rd.
No, on
I'm sorry.
April 4th.
On April 4th, excuse me. But you never looked inside it?
Yeah, I looked inside it.
Okay. Is antique worth money?
Not much.
Okay. But you didn't see a wooden-headed doll inside that baby carriage?
Nope.
Silver flatware is worth money, right?
If it's sterling. If it's silver plate, not really.
Did you check the house for flatware?
On which day?
Either day.
No, I didn't check specifically for flatware. I just went through the house and looked to see what things I could find that might be of value.
Okay. And so what you're telling us is, you went over the 3rd, you looked it over to see if there's anything there of value.
I looked it over to see about a potential auction.
You came back on the 4th,
That's correct.
and you were still thinking auction at that time, is that right?
At that time, Janine Porter said, we have to close in 14 days, so an auction's out of the question. So if you want to buy some items, you need to get over there I will give you Helen Stein's contact information because she's very hard to get a hold of and I don't have a phone number for her. And Helen said you could buy some things. I was interested in the lampshade and I was also interested in the guitar and possibly some other items.
Okay. So what you're telling me is you were planning on buying things on the 4th, correct?
I was planning on buying things once Helen and Stein and I could talk and we could set up a time and we could negotiate a price. Some of the items I didn't know what the value were, so I was going to get them. I was going to look them up and research them to see what the value was so I could give her a proper offer.
But you didn't do that, did you?
I tried.
In fact, what you did was you took the stuff, right? Yes or no, Mr. Kraus?
I secured the items because I had a fiduciary responsibility to protect them because I was under an oral contract with Janine Porter and I could not get a hold of her to tell her that all the guns were missing from the cabinet.
Mr. Kraus, you didn't pick any guns out of the house. That's your testimony.
That's correct.
Okay. There was no one there when you were in the house. Is that correct, on the 4th?
That's correct.
You removed boxes of material out of that house
That's correct.
without ever talking to anybody before you took it.
That's correct.
You loaded it up in your truck, right?
Yes,
And you left.
that's correct.
You didn't make out any receipts,
There was nobody to make a receipt to.
so you just took it.
I explained why I took it.
Yeah.
I secured it for the client.
Even though she would never bet the woman, you're now telling this jury she was your client.
Through her legally appointed real estate agent that I had an oral contract with. Absolutely.
And as part of that contract, you told Janine Porter you were going to take this property. Is that correct?
No, I had no intention to take the property. I was going to put it in the dining area.
But that's not what you did, is it, Mr. Kraus?
No, because I didn't know that people were stealing things or taking things out of the house.
And the only reason you knew people were stealing things is because you're claiming that guns were taken. Is that correct?
Well, when you notice there's a gun cabinet with real guns and BB guns and ammo, and then the next day it's completely empty, that's a pretty good indication that somebody was in there and they took things out of the house.
You heard the testimony of Clay Stein, sir.
Mm-hmm.
You heard Clay
Yes or
Stein
no?
say, you heard
Yes.
Clay Stein testify, he removed the firearms after he found out you took property of the house on April 4th. You heard
No,
that?
I didn't catch that part of the testimony.
Okay, Mr. Braun, don't block the juror's view.
Oh, I'm sorry, Jim.
Sorry.
You don't recall that testimony?
No, I recalled him saying he took the property out of the house. I'm sitting over there and he was talking kind of low and I don't know when he said he took it out of the house.
So you don't recall that Clay Steins testified he removed all the firearms after you took property out of the house?
No, I don't remember him saying that.
Now, are you saying there was any other signs of theft inside this house that made it necessary for you to take custody of people's things?
How can you tell?
Exactly. But nonetheless, you took the stuff. Nobody told you to do that, did they, Mr. Kraus?
No, I was under contract to be there for potential purchase of items. And then when I realized things had been taken, I secured the items so that I could contact Mrs. Stein and tell her what I had done, because Janine Porter didn't want to have anything more to do with the conversation, and Janine Porter would never give me Mrs. Stein's phone number, and I'd been asking her for that contact information the entire time.
So what you're telling us, Mr. Kraus, is there wasn't a single item that you were interested in on April 3rd that wasn't in the house on April 4th. Isn't that correct?
There wasn't a single, I don't understand what you're asking.
Well, we're talking about some items are valuable. You spotted a lot of these items on April 3rd.
I really spotted two items, the lampshade and the guitar in the outbuilding. I said there might be more items.
And they were still there on April 4th.
Yes.
And the other items that you collected on April 4th that you thought might have some value, that you took custody of for safekeeping purposes, were what exactly?
Well, there was a phonograph, there was a motorcycle helmet, there was a saxophone, there was a box of miscellaneous things, there was a lampshade.
And you left with all that property in your possession.
That's correct.
And you didn't return it until you heard from Jeff Berquist about photographs being taken of you taking the property in the first place.
That's not correct. I returned it when Janine Porter told me the son took the guns at 3 o'clock. That's when I realized that this was guy stuff. There was another person involved. So I took all the guy stuff back. I took the helmet back, I took the phonograph back, because it was all in one room that was somewhat neat. Of all the house, there was one room upstairs that had a little bit of order to it. That's where the saxophone was, and I figured, well, this must belong to somebody other than Helen Stein. So I took all that back and put it in the house.
And you're saying you didn't return the rest of the property until after you heard from Jeff Berquist.
I didn't return the rest of the property because I was still going to look it up for possible purchase, because I was under the impression Janine Porter was going to give me Helen Stein's contact information, and she wanted to sell some stuff because she was hurting for money.
Is it traditional in your business to take people's property and then agree to pay for it
When
after you got your possession?
No, typically it's not. However, when I have a contract, I do take property to get it evaluated, because I'm not a licensed appraiser.
In this particular case, you do not have a contract you can show this jury that authorized you to go into that house and remove
I
items.
had an oral contract.
That no one is able to verify, is that correct?
I'm verifying it.
And Janine Porter was the exact opposite of you on that point, wasn't she?
That's correct.
And for purposes of the record, you've seen all these photos of the person carrying stuff out of the boxes?
Mm-hmm.
That's you, right?
Yep.
Nobody else?
Nope.
That's you, that's the way you're dressed?
Yep.
That's your dad's van
Nope.
that registered in your name or your
It's
father's?
registered in my dad's name. Yeah, it's registered in his name, but yeah.
Okay. You use it,
Yeah.
but it belongs technically to your father?
Yes.
Okay? Shows a marked as State's Exhibit number 13. You
Okay.
recognize all those items?
Nope.
Okay, what do you recognize?
I recognize the lampshade, the mirror, the pincushion, the photo album, the box there, it's just an empty box. I recognize some of the items I don't recognize.
Are you disputing that there's items in that picture that you didn't remove from Helen Stein's house?
Absolutely.
What wouldn't you have taken?
I wouldn't have taken that vase right there because it had absolutely no value. I wouldn't have taken that candlestick holder there. It had absolutely no value. Yeah.
Those 2 items.
Well,
Anything else?
I can't tell for sure what that is, and that there are probably 3 or 4 items there that no, I did not take.
But the lampshade has value, correct?
Yes.
Can you tell us how much?
No.
But you looked it up.
Yep. I couldn't find it. I am assuming it's probably worth anywhere from $200 to $300.
Okay. The old wedding album does have value, don't it?
Yes or no?
Yes.
What are they worth?
Depends. Depends on what people are willing to pay for it.
Okay. The pincushion?
Nominal.
What about the silverback mirror?
It's probably about $30.
Okay. Anything else in here that's collectible, like the boxes?
Maybe nominal.
Depends, right?
It depends.
Who's at the auction that day?
Yep. Gotta have 2 people who want it.
Now, Mr. Kraus, what you're testifying to is you went in that house, right?
Yes.
You opened the door,
Mhm.
it was shut when you got there.
Yes or no?
Yes, sir?
Yes.
You opened it up
Yes.
on September 4th.
Yes.
You were dressed to remove items from the house.
No, I was dressed to work in the house.
And when you say work in the house, what else did you bring with you to do your work?
I just put on work clothes. I didn't bring anything else.
You didn't bring a notepad to take notes?
No,
You didn't bring a camera to take pictures of anything?
no. Well, yes, I had my phone camera.
But you didn't take pictures of anything inside the house?
No, absolutely not.
You didn't photograph any of the furniture that might be worth something?
No, I did not.
Didn't report or catalog anything?
We were not going to have an auction. I was to go there for the purpose of gathering items that I may be interested in purchasing. There's no reason to take pictures of the inside of the house. It was a mitigated disaster. I would not take pictures inside the house. You saw the pictures of the inside of the house. I was
Mr.
only
Kraus,
there to
Mr.
look for
Kraus.
Let him
items.
finish his answer.
I was only there to look for items that I might be interested in purchasing from Helen Stein and to see if I could figure out what that vehicle was in the outbuilding.
And you never figured out what the vehicle was?
No, I found out later what it was.
You removed property without talking to anybody?
I removed property to secure it because I had an oral contract with the agent that was representing.
The question is, did you remove property without talking to somebody?
Yes,
Okay, thank you.
You loaded up on your truck?
that's correct.
You left?
That's correct.
Nothing further?
Redirect?
Yes, sir. Thank you. You attempted to contact somebody before removing the property, correct?
Yes,
And had you not noticed items that were missing, what would you have done?
Objection.
Overruled.
What would you have done with those items?
could you repeat the question, please?
Sure. You removed you attempted to contact Miss Porter prior to removing the items because you noticed some items were missing.
That's correct.
Okay. Had you not noticed the items missing, what were you going to do with that other property?
They were going to stay there on the floor of the dining room until I was able to make an arrangement with Miss Stein, so that we could come to some sort of a purchase agreement.
You heard the state question you regarding Clay Stein's testimony in relation to a 12-gauge shotgun.
That's correct.
And you heard the testimony of Kevin Francis, who was at the house 5 hours before you ever got there the first time.
That's correct.
And consistent with your testimony, he also said there was no 12-gauge shotgun.
That's right. At that time, when he was there in the morning of April 3rd, I was in the continuing education class with Janine Porter at the board office on Campbell Street in Sandusky.
And as soon as you talk to Janine Porter on the afternoon of April 4th,
Yes or no?
Yes,
you return the guy's property.
return the guy stuff. But
And
stuff
this-
that I realized that probably wasn't part of Helen Stein's stuff, there's another party involved.
And what time did you learn from Jeff Berquist that there were photos of you?
9:30 that evening,
So approximately 5-6 hours later.
that's correct.
And nothing further, Judge.
Anything else?
No, Judge, thank you.
Thank you, may step down. Okay, we will go ahead and adjourn for the day. Again, when you go home tonight, don't have any conversation with any family or friends, don't try to do any independent research with respect to the case, don't watch any TV or other accounts of the trial. You know, read the newspaper in the morning, keep an open mind,